Hi, my name is Ralph Harris. My TV friends call me the military guy, and I have a lot of enemies, and I'm not sure what they call me, but we won't mention that. At any rate, I'm a veteran. I served in the United States Army from 1954 to 1956 at Fort McClellan, Alabama. In 1956, I was sent to Berlin, Germany for occupation duty and returned home in 1957. I'm a past commander of VFW Post 423 here in Ann Arbor. I decided in the year 2000 to produce and host TV shows about some of my fellow veterans who have interesting stories and interesting backgrounds. And I wanted their grandkids and their kids to know about them, more about them. As of today, I've interviewed many vets on 13 TV shows concerning World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and Iraq, some of them more than once. Today's show is also about Vietnam, so it's back to Vietnam again. Today's guests are Fred Altenburnt from Ann Arbor, Harry Pendergrass, United States Army, Ann Arbor, and Tom Stemsky, United States Army. And so, before our guests tell us about their roles in Vietnam, I'd like to share a few historical facts about the war. After World War II, in 1946, Vietnam was declared a free state under French control. Chinese nationalist troops who were occupying Vietnam at that time moved north back to China. In 1947, Vietnam became an associated state within the French Union. In 1950, a man by the name of Ho Chi Minh declared the formation of a Democratic Republic of Vietnam and claimed to be the only legal government. The British and the United States governments recognized a rival to Ho Chi Minh. Military fighting erupted between the French troops and Ho Chi Minh's forces. In the meantime, China became a communist state and assisted Ho Chi Minh's forces in the fighting. In 1954, the French lost a major battle in Vietnam called Dien Bien Phu in what has now become North Vietnam. In 1955, French troops moved to South Vietnam. In 1962, the United States sent supplies to the French. It builds. In 1963, the United States sent military advisors to help the South Vietnam troops defend their territory. And in 1964, North Vietnamese patrol boats attacked a United States ship, the USS Maddox. The United States retaliated with bombing raids on North Vietnam. In 1965, the first U.S. Marine combat units entered Vietnam at Da Nang, and the great American buildup of contracts, troops, and equipment began. After 9 years of war, in 1973, the last American troops left on March 29th after a slow withdrawal of American troops. And in 1975, President Gerald Ford declared the war finished. Here's a few facts. Over 3 million United States Armed Service personnel served in Vietnam. Over 57,000 died. And something that most people don't understand, the United States were never defeated in any major battle, even though we say that we lost the war. I guess we did. And now let's meet our guests. Welcome Fred, Harry, and Tom. Some simple questions to start to introduce yourself to our viewers. Fred, what's your hometown?
My hometown is Ypsilanti.
Ypsilanti?
Yes.
How long you been there?
Oh, past 38 years.
That's a long time. You're an old goat.
Hmm?
I said you're an old goat.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see all the gray?
How about you, Harry? Where's your hometown?
I'm originally from Flint, but I now live in Manchester Township.
And I lived in Flint for a long time, went to Flint Central, and we've talked about that many times.
Like
Tom,
the same
where are you
Coney
from?
dogs.
I was raised in Sheboygan, Michigan. That's a C-H-E. And, but I live now in Saline with my family. We've been here for over 50 years.
Sheboygan's a great town, and that hole up there. I used to live in Traverse City, and I had a motorhome. I met my wife when I was up there monkeying around, and I love Sheboygan. Am I right? Sheboygan's, no, wait a minute. Sheboygan's somewhere
There's
else.
a Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and a Sheboygan, Michigan. I'm from the more famous one with a CHEBOYGAN.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Fred, what branch of service were you in? I already told you about it, but you can say it
I
again.
was at the Army. I was with the 101st Airborne in Vietnam.
Okay, so you got the unit in there too.
Army,
What unit?
1st Aviation Brigade.
Okay, Tom?
I was had a rather diversified career. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was in for kind of the thrill, and so I was an Airborne Ranger Special Forces, and then decided to be a helicopter pilot. So I served with the 189th in Vietnam, probably the highlight of my career.
Now, back in your day, airborne, that mean you were also qualified in parachutes?
I was with the 7th Group Special Forces at Fort Bragg before I went to flight school. So, yes, you were required to be airborne qualified if you were SF.
A good friend of mine that just died day before yesterday. He was airborne, and he was in Georgia and during the Vietnam time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What was your company's
Now we're
nickname?
getting around to what were your jobs
Ghost
or
Riders.
duties.
Ghost Riders, I think.
Or Avengers.
Fred, what was your
Avengers,
job
that's
when you were in
what I think.
Vietnam, or your duties?
My job in Vietnam, I was a crew chief and a flight engineer, later a flight engineer on the
Hang
Chinook
on now.
helicopter.
Let me ask you a question for the audience. A crew chief, what's a crew chief do? Does
Maintains the aircraft. I was
you make sure they fly,
make sure they're flyable.
flyable? Okay.
I crashed a couple of times. I don't like that feeling.
Okay. And Harry, how about you? What were your job and duties in Vietnam?
They sent me to the motor pool because I could read and write.
I don't believe a word of that.
You know, we had a good crew in the motor pool, but they needed somebody to dispatch trucks and keep the records. So I was done about 8 o'clock every day.
But
Then-
basically, you're talking about jeeps and trucks, not tanks. That
No,
kind of-
no, it was an aviation company.
Okay. How about
Yeah.
did they have Humvees back then, or the equivalent?
No, they had Jeeps, 3/4 tons. The one I drove was in the Korean War,
Yeah.
and it was same age as I was. We had deuce and a halves, 5 tons, rough terrain forklifts
Okay.
to lift the blades up. And we had a lot of, and I taught people how to drive.
Okay. Thank
That
you.
was a religious experience, especially when they're from New York.
How about you, Tom? What was your job and duties?
I, as I said, went to flight school, and directly upon graduation, we were sent to country.
Where was flight school?
Flight school was Fort Walters, Texas, and for 6 months, and 6 months at Fort Rucker, Alabama.
And those are all helicopters, right?
Those were all rotary wing, but
Okay.
fixed wing were also qualified there, pilots.
Okay.
But my job in Vietnam, after 5 months in country, and I was assigned to fly gunships, something I didn't really think about, whether they were slicks or guns, but
Now, hang on. The slicks were the ones that took the troops. We have one on post 423.
slicks
what's the name
are
of that
troop.
one? What's the one out there at the?
The Bikini, it's from the 119th.
Okay. And yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
A slick is a troop carrier, and a gunship had a crew of 4.
Yeah.
Aircraft commander, pilot, crew chief, and gunner.
And you were the.
I was a aircraft commander, and I was a platoon leader in Vietnam. That would be about 70 to 80 men, enlisted men and or officers, mostly warrant officers,
How many aircraft?
30-some aircraft.
Oh my God! And you were the leader of all 36?
I was in that chain of command as a platoon leader. I was a
Okay.
captain at the time.
Okay.
That was the rank required. And basically, our mission was to fly cover, if you flew armed aircraft, fly cover for any type of mission that my brothers were involved in.
And you had machine
required
guns and
aircraft.
rockets?
Say what?
Machine guns and rockets on that?
We had a M21 system. That was 2 M60s, 1 on each side, and then 14 rockets, 7 on either side, all fired from the aircraft commander position or pilot
Okay.
position.
Well, thank you. Now back to Fred. How old were you when you joined up, Fred, or did you get drafted?
I got drafted. And I was 19 at the time when I went in, and the reception station, they gave you a choice of any school. Not wanting to be an infantryman or sit behind the artillery. I re-upped for 1 year. I got a school that said multi-engine, tandem rotor, helicopter, and I had no idea, but I liked aircraft. I got to Fort Eustis. I was introduced to Chinook. That's similar to what you see there.
Well, hang on now. Right now we're doing the age thing on the
It's
question.
19.
Okay, and then we'll come back to it. Now, when I was in, we had draftees and U.S. My serial U.S. 1648 87 52. Sir, you never forget that stuff. And I was treated sometimes in basic training a little funny because the draftees, you joined up? Yeah, why would anybody do that? Anyway, now, how old were you?
I was 19
Harry?
when I enlisted.
19?
At 19, yes.
And I was too. 19, right?
All of 18.
You were 18 when you went in? Well, then you were in there a while before you did the rest of that stuff.
Yeah, I was Action Jackson guy looking for excitement.
Excitement, and you found it.
Thank you for that.
All right, now, well, I mean that nice. Fred, how about you? What were some of your missions, or what we know what you did, but was there anything special about what you were doing that you can retrieve and talk about? Did they move you around in Nam?
No, I was with 2 companies in Vietnam, but we did resupply to bases out in the bush.
Now, hang on a minute. There's an audience here. The bush means the countryside around our bases. Outside the wire.
Outside the wire.
Barbed wire. Okay.
Fire bases.
Yep.
We landed and let troops off out in the bush.
Yep.
I also carried refugees.
Okay.
Logistics was our big thing. Logistics meaning anything that troops needed out in the in the bush.
Artillery.
Artillery.
Now, how about you, Harry? What about you? Or can you identify the word mission with anything that you did?
I drove convoys occasionally.
Uh-oh.
And because I was the extra guy.
Now, there was no such thing as these IEDs at Afghanistan back
No,
then, or
but-
was there?
But they had these little things called B-40 rockets.
Oh, I know. They go boom, boom, and people die.
Yeah, but I didn't know it at the time. We moved the 119th Aviation Company to Ankei, and by truck. I didn't know we had trucks with quad 50s on them in front and back, and plus the gunships are flying over us all the time. That wasn't bad.
That's him.
Yeah, the most interesting one was I went from the sea, Quin Yan, drove to Pleiku, just 2 of us, all by ourselves, and I had a 45. I felt so safe.
Yeah, you don't really mean that.
No, I don't.
No, 45 is not going to do too much good here.
No.
All right, Tom, how about you? Enemy or missions, anything? Tell us about one of them. Maybe the most important or the best one, the one you remember or don't remember or don't want to remember?
I think one of the most precarious mission that we flew as rotary wing pilots was 3 to 4 nights of the week we were on standby. That means you really didn't sleep. You basically the aircraft was parked 100 feet away from your
Billet.
not billet, the
Tent.
there you go, hooch, bunker, and if the base camp that we were at, which was a very large area in Pleiku, Central Highlands, the mission would be if the camp came under attack, you would run out of the bunker, start the aircraft, get it going, and try to find the enemy, engage them while the camp was under attack. I thought that was probably the most...
Which means you were on fire too.
Oh, we were all under fire,
Yeah.
and we were trying not to die as we were starting the aircraft. But the NVA, of course, were aware of where the aircraft were parked, either in the revetment area or especially if the flare standby was the official mission. My brothers would understand this, that an aircraft would deposit a drop of flare at 2,000 feet, illuminate the area, and you'd be, then you'd try to start the aircraft and get out there to engage the enemy, which you could see the fire from a B-40 rocket or 121
And they
millimeter rocket.
They
You
had
could see the
they had tracers too, so some no.
yeah, and so you would try to get there before they left, and so that for me was probably the one thing that I just sort of think about. There was no choice of whether or not you were not going to go when you're under fire, and I don't know if you've ever had a 120 millimeter rocket fall 30 feet from you. It leaves
just
about
yesterday.
a 10-foot hole.
Give me a break.
And so the last thing I'll say is these aircraft that we flew were all overloaded. The density altitude was very high. We just couldn't pull pitch, so to speak, from the collective and take off. You really had to kind of coax the aircraft because we were loaded with ammunition plus. You wanted to have as much armament as you could. So I'm saying that was a pretty precarious
pretty
mission,
precarious
and I'm glad
as far as
it's
I'm concerned.
over.
All right,
Ralph.
let's move along. Thank you very much. And now, Harry, did you ever see any enemy combatants?
That's Harry. I'm
Or
Fred.
excuse me, Harry. Fred, did you see
Are
any
you sure
enemy? I know you, Fred.
You need a pill?
Did you ever? You're on a base of some sort. Did you ever see any bad guys around you shooting at your butt?
I got shot at a few times when I was out on sandbag duty.
Okay, how about you, Harry?
They shot at us quite often.
No, I already know that you did. All right, now here's another question that people might like to know about. Did you ever think you might not survive and come home? How about you, Fred?
Yeah.
Okay, how about you?
No,
No, you were sure you're going to come home?
I wasn't sure, but I didn't worry about
Well, you
it.
weren't worrying about it. How about
Yeah.
you, Tom?
I was pretty fat, dumb, and happy. Rather skinny, dumb, and happy as a captain. But one day, flying along skinny and happy, I ran into an ambush. This was a very, very well-planned ambush by the NVA, who knew about aircraft, how to shoot, what to shoot. And I would say in a 10-second period, I had 49 holes in the aircraft. And I think probably for me, that was sort of a battlefield conversion.
A defining
occurred.
moment, as
I
they
just
say. Yeah.
just couldn't believe that none of those rounds hit me through every part of the aircraft.
Thank you. Now, Fred, did you get wounded or
No.
have any close
fortunately-
calls?
Fortunately, no. I got shot
Just
down.
mentally?
Yeah.
No.
That's
Tell me to go to
that's how
blazes.
I always needed a crutch up there.
How about you, Harry?
No, I'm a good
That's
ducker.
good. When did you come home, Fred?
4th of June, 1970.
Okay. How many months were you in country?
6 days short of 2 years.
Okay. How about you, Harry?
I came home on January 6, 1970.
How about you, Tom?
Came home in '69, April of '69. I was there for 13 months.
Now, here's a question that we hear about and all that. Fred, when you came home, came back on a plane or whatever, how were you treated by family and friends and the community?
Family and friends was treated nicely. Community, not so nice. They didn't want to hear the stories.
I've heard
They
that
were called
story
names.
a
We were
bunch-
called
many
names.
times. Okay.
Among other things.
How about you, Harry?
I was treated well. Most of my neighborhood had been in the service anyway, or currently in, so nobody minded.
Okay. Here's another one that I found that people who are listening and watching us, Fred, what were your feelings when, or emotions during dangerous situations? Scared, obviously, or maybe you're not. I don't know.
If I was respectful. If I was scared, I performed better when I was. The more scared I was, the better I performed.
Okay. Harry?
I'm rather calm and collected during those situations, but afterwards I shake, so that's about how it is.
Now, if you got 37 holes in your helicopter, I can imagine you.
49.
All right, well,
Who's counting?
Yeah, who's counting? Did you keep yourself dry or wet?
If you were
Or you wanna talk
if you
about
were a helicopter pilot, you got shot at least once every 2 days, and if you didn't get shot, you were not where the action was, so to speak. So it was very common to get shot and take a round, but the aircraft still performed. That was the beauty of the UH-1, and those babies would fly, taking a lot of abuse.
Now, is that the same thing as a Huey, UH?
UH-1 is the WWII series A, B, C, and D.
Okay.
And I flew a C model, and then they were, of course, everybody was happy that the Cobra came out. That would have been in 70, or excuse me, 69. The Cobras were produced, and it was very helpful in Vietnam.
Okay, and we're getting ready to wrap up here, I think. Fred, in retrospect, what are your views about the Vietnam War? You think it was worthwhile, not worthwhile, that kind of thing?
I thought at the time it was worthwhile. Afterwards, I got my doubts.
Okay.
Same here. Just, I really don't know anymore.
It's a hard question, isn't it?
It's been too long ago. It's 50 years for me.
When I asked that question, I said that's a hard one to answer because you can't say it sucked, or you can't say, oh, it was wonderful. You know, no. How about you, Tom?
I don't dwell on it.
A Special Forces team captured NVA Mailman in '68, and as pilots, we were permitted to be in on the interrogation. He was 23. He was a Catholic, spoke 3 languages, had 2 children, did not think Ho Chi Minh was a good commander, wanted nothing to do with the war, but he was serving, and I said, gosh, that fellow sounds a lot like the typical American boy.
Yeah.
He was permitted to go back into the lines, back to his unit. This was all an interesting mission to try to sabotage anything that he could. He was agreeing and cooperating with the American forces. I remember he was inserted, and approximately 3 minutes later he was assassinated on the spot. When you're flying in the air, you can see all of this, especially if you're low level. And that changed the war for me because I decided that even though I'm a patriot, I love the military, I love the flag, and I love my relatives who were World War II heroes. But I felt like war was really demonic. It is not good. Amen.
That business, when I was in Berlin, I got a chance to talk to some Russian soldiers who spoke English, obviously, because I don't speak Russian. I got a chance to speak to some Germans who were in the German army. And as a young kid of 20 years old at that time, or 21, whatever it was, it's the first time I actually realized that they're no different than I am, or they are. You're just fighting for country. You're doing what you're told. Anyway, I appreciate the 3 of you coming tonight, and I hope that the Ann Arbor folks enjoy the show. And again, Fred, thank you. Harry, thank you.
Yep.
Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Go Blue and go Army. Hello.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Ann Arbor. I'm sure we're not on camera anymore. Or we might be on.